new journalists coming out of university, graduating to get a job in the industry, and what would your advice be?
To give it some context, first of all, I think that it's difficult for all graduates to get any employment at the moment. I mean, I have two older children and two younger children, and the two older children are both graduates. One of them got a first-class honours degree in English and Education from the Winchester University. I'm very proud of her, she's brilliant, but she wanted to be a teacher. And I read some data a couple of days ago that showed that if if your qualification is education, second only to medicine and veterinary sciences, you've got the highest chance of going straight into work, because it's a no-brainer. You train to be a teacher, they need a lot of teachers out there. My eldest son got a first-class honours degree from Oxford University in English, and was going to go on to be an academic, and is now a policeman. Now, again, that's his choice, and a lot of very senior police officers started off that way, so I expect him to be running the whole thing maybe in about 5 years, 10 years. But again, we need a lot of policemen at the moment. That was 2 years ago. It'd be much more difficult if he came out now. As far as journalism is concerned, here's the real dilemma. The real dilemma is we are overproducing media studies students. And the real challenge, and I talked to Joy, your Vice-Chancellor, about this at a function not that long ago, is to make your graduates distinctive and distinguished in the same way that in the postgrad field, Cardiff is very, very good. And you are up against the likes of Goldsmiths and Ravensbourne and Bournemouth and Portsmouth. It's a tough old world. And I give you an example on the technical side here. If we've got a job applicant who got his or her qualification from Ravensbourne, we go, oh yeah, all right, yeah, we know them. They're. And that's because of experience. What you really need to do is get yourself into a position whereby when you say, I'm a media graduate, yeah, where from is that? From Winchester. Oh yeah, all right, okay, fine, cool. And I don't know whether that's the case or not, but it's all about distinctiveness. And the second part of the answer is, yeah, it is tough. You asked me earlier on about what the typical news gathering team was. When I joined this company 30 odd years ago, there would be a cameraman, possibly a camera assistant, a sound man, possibly a sound assistant, a lighting man, and I'd need another hand sometimes. Now, quite often a cameraman will go out on his or her own, and if it's a really big story, you might just have a sound man as well. You've got a lot of journalists who, your friend here, your colleague standing behind the camera, would be the interviewer as well. He'd set the shot up.
Can we just stop? So there's a bit of a shake on the wire.
Is that okay then?
Is it okay? Fine. 3, 2, 1. Nowadays, your colleague who's standing behind the camera is quite likely to set the camera up with the shot that he wants and then come around and sit where you're sitting and conduct the interview and then go back and edit it here on a desktop. So it's shrink, shrink, shrink. So you've got to be incredibly good as an individual, but you've also got to make sure that that university or college or whatever it might be, that very shortly you'll be having to pay between £7,000 and £9,000 a year for the right to go to it and qualify, is the best in the business. That's the real challenge, because the best will always be employed, whether it's here or the BBC or CNN or Sky. The best will always get a job, but it's fewer, it's narrowing, and that's the real challenge in the individual and the institution from which he or she comes.
Bit of a lighter question here. Obviously, you're a resident of Winchester and Hampshire.
Just up the road. Yes,
the
Hampshire
road.
certainly. Just up the road from Winchester.
How do you find the area? Is it nice?
I love it. I love it. I've lived there. We have lived there, my wife and I and our children, for, gosh, very nearly 25 years. In Ropley and Bramdean and Winchester itself. We did live just outside Winchester, Oliver's Battery, for a while. I just love it because I love living in London. Sorry, it's an occupational hazard, a Freudian slip. I love working in London. I haven't lived in London for 30 odd years because it's a buzz, it's vibrant, and it's where the Bank of England is, and Parliament, and theatre, and restaurants, and what have you. But I really look forward to getting home to Hampshire, to my little bit of Hampshire, and I like going into Winchester with the kids. I adore the cathedral. I love the college. My son was at the college, and there's just so much there. I like the little I can't think what it's called, screen, but you know, used to be a church and is now a cinema. I like the Theatre Royal. There's a plaque that's got my name on one of the back of the chairs because I helped chipped in a little bit towards it and so on and so on. It's got everything, I think. It's a great town, and I don't mind the fact that there are lots of students around. I quite like that. I've got a slight sort of sympathy for students.
Finally, how do you unwind after a busy week presenting?
Pink Floyd, the Rolling Stones, black and white movies like the Dam Busters, and walking on my farm and watching my children ride their horses.
Could we see an Alastair Stewart interview of Mick Jagger maybe one day?
I would give my right... No, I wouldn't give my right hand. I might give my left hand for it. I did Mastermind for charity with the lovely John Humphreys, and the Rolling Stones was my specialist subject, and I won. And John afterwards said, you know, oh, what are the outstanding interviews that you like? I can't do a Welsh accent very well. And I said, Mick Jagger and the Pope. And he said, surely the other way around. I said, no, Mick Jagger and the Pope. I've got to think, I mean, Jagger defined my growing up, my teen years. But I also think they are, as they jokingly say of themselves, the greatest rock and roll band in the world. And my real thrill is I've taken Alex, my 28-year-old son, to see them as well, and Pink Floyd. And he was prepared to grumpily concede that they still did a pretty good job for OAPs. But Jagger is interesting because he's interesting on cricket, he's interesting on Europe and the single currency. He is a very erudite Renaissance man as well as being a great rock and roller. So I'd just like to sit down and spend an hour chatting to Michael Jagger.